Sorry, Neil. I
Yeah,
should
no
have.
worries.
Yeah. Sorry. No. So no. So I was saying, dude, just yesterday, between yesterday alone, I got like four different calls from people asking about DeepSeek. Hey, what do you think about this and whatnot? And then obviously, you know me, I was giving my thoughts on it. But before I did that, since you and I didn't get a chance to catch up on it, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then let's just go back and forth on it.
Yeah, so I've been using DeepSeek and it's awesome. I think what some people are I've seen a lot of posts that I think people are misunderstanding that the innovations that DeepSeek made, like the paper is super clever, but like they couldn't have made DeepSeek R1 without like the existence of GPT-4 and O1. Like people are like they only spent X or whatever. Even if that's true, they use the inputs and outputs of the supermodels, like these huge the LLMs to train. Like this is going to keep happening, and it is super cool. I think they'd be messing this up. MIT, one of the big universities, just released a I don't know 60 billion parameter model that's on like it's on the leaderboard. It's competitive, and it also only costs them however much to train. Um, so anyway, I like DeepSeek. I think it's super cool. But again, I think people are misunderstanding like when they are like, oh, maybe we don't need to spend billions to train that the next you do like this is really cool. This is an optimization, but like the next frontier isn't going to be an optimization of an existing model. It's going to be like the next evolution of a model, like where it's even more capable. And then someone can come on top of that and deep seek it all over again. But
Yeah. Look, I mean, people are. It's funny. So people tend to panic over the smallest of things, right? Um, and what most people don't understand is that it takes a lot more effort to lay out the foundation, and it takes a lot more cost for that to lay out that foundation, and it's a lot easier to build on top of it, right? So, for example, like with us, like when we were introducing the concept of the ilm, one of the things that I used to always get from investors, one of the questions that would always come up was, so wait, so are you guys going to be competing with an open? How are you guys going to compete with an open AI, or how are you guys going to compete with like a Meta, and or an Anthropic, right? Who are putting billions into this? And my response, because I was being honest, my response was simple. I said, no, I would be an idiot to try to compete with them. Why would I want to compete with them? They've already done the hard work. See, the hard work has already been done. That was the novelty. That was the whole novelty of the transformer based architecture and the initial LLMs that they had built out. Then what you do is you take components of that, you take aggregations of that, and then you build models on top of those models. That ends up becoming easier, right? So it's like knowledge. So the this is why like you start to see this acceleration in innovation. So if you start to see like the window for innovation, the time window for innovation is decreasing by orders of magnitude. That doesn't mean that we're smarter than the people were before us. It's just that the foundational models themselves didn't exist, right? So like generational changes that used to happen, the reason why they were called generational changes was because they literally took generations to do, right? It's like, all right, you got to lay out the groundwork, right? If you can't really do something until and unless the infrastructure is already there. Once that infrastructure is there, then you can things start to go very, very quickly, start to move very, very fast. And what a lot of people are discounting is they're assuming that, oh, it took OpenAI this many billions to train these things, and DeepSeek was able to do it for 6 million, right? But what they're not realizing is that DeepSeek had learned they never built out those foundational models. They were actually building on top of this. And actually, there's a couple of guys I was looking at when you do a little bit more research. Initially, not now, but in the beginning, when DeepSeek had just come out, and you were asking DeepSeek the questions like, "Oh, what is where you what's your underlying model?" uh, not now, but in the beginning stages, it actually slipped up, and not even slipped up, right? It in the beginning it just said, "Oh no, it's built off of OpenAI," right? So those foundational models that you build on top of and you grab the aggregation from, it's gonna get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, but that does not undermine the fact that the underlying model itself is where you without those we wouldn't have a deep sea today, right? um the second thing also is we, dude, there's so much unknowns about this stuff, right? Like we don't know how many GPUs are behind the scenes, right? That are actually running it, that are actually powering this thing. I don't know if you heard the the CEO of Scale.ai. He even said it. He's like, no, I mean they have like this is China has access to like 50,000 high performance NVIDIA GPUs, and it's like, well, how would they have access to it? And that's sort of that's the part that they don't want to disclose because obviously that's under I don't know if embargo is the right term, but certainly those there's they're not supposed to have access to those as a part of like our trade policy.
Yeah, the
So
export controls. The nice part, dude. So like, obviously, everyone wants a business that is, can survive any outcome. But the nice part about building like an agent, like our infrastructure is like an orchestration and decentralized training layer for agents. And what I mean, why this matters is there's a company almost no one's heard of. I don't. Well, maybe some business gurus, but I think it's Akamai Technologies. I'll send the article. They do
yeah,
like content delivery networks, DDoS, like infrastructure stuff for the internet. And they were around during the dot-com bubble. And they have about 3.8 billion in revenue net
yeah,
like
dude,
today.
I remember
They're still
Akamai.
around. Yeah. So like the point was like it didn't matter who win. Like in the dot-com bubble, there was all these companies that some went out of business. But that doesn't like we don't care who DeepSeek, Claude, it doesn't matter if the Meta releases the next Llama, whatever the best model is 15 years from now, it won't matter. Like we're building like infrastructure so that people can use these models with their private data and monetize their intellects. It has nothing to do with we're not dependent on like we're not tethered to any specific LLM, which I think is super important.
Well, what's to me, what's interesting is that the market dynamics, right? Like how the market actually reacts to things. And look, I mean, not to get too conspiratorial here, but it's interesting because if you actually think about the Cold War that we're in right now, right? Like we're in a cold, and you're a. It makes sense. Who better to ask than a military guy like you, right? But we're in essentially a cold AI war, right? AI, it's AI warfare. That is the power. Like whoever's going to win the AI race ultimately is going to be the one that's going to end. It's like what the nuclear race used to be between Russia and us. Right now, it's between Russia is obviously preoccupied on other things right now. So it's between China and us, and it's the AI wars. And if you remember, what was it? What was it? Like 2 months ago, yeah, 2 months ago, right? Remember with the election results, and then when we had our founders called, how fucking giddy were all of us, right? We're like super excited. We're like, oh man, the U.S. is back, baby, and it's all about innovation and crypto and AI, and it's like let's just go go go. Um, just for context, before that, we were like, okay, man, what's going to happen? And, things were sort of, going down. And we used to have these conversations all the time about the state of the US and how we're losing that battle. But then once with this new presidency coming in place, we were all doing backflips and we were celebrating. And then as we started getting closer and closer towards inauguration and whatnot, you just start to see the market react, and all these new policies were starting to come in. Even our own, like our strategy for raising and whatnot, right? We were getting a lot more aggressive with that, less concerns. So we can see that there was a momentum that was happening within the U.S. For innovation, for less regulation, right? And it's like, okay, man, it's happening, right? And great things were happening. It's no coincidence that it's like what I called 4 years ago when we're undergoing the same sort of thing. It's like they're and again, I don't want to be too conspiratorial here, but just having a conversation around this, we just have to think about these things, right? Like, is it a coincidence that like all of a sudden the economy was going great and this and that, and then all of a sudden from there was like a lab leak in China, and then from there we went into COVID, right? And which essentially brought the U.S. the world economy, but most importantly, the leader in the world economy, essentially to its knees, right? That happened, which if you are actually competing, right? So game theory, if you're actually competing, and geopolitical game theory as well, right? That was actually a genius move, right? To slow someone's growth down because so that you can buy some time to be able to catch up for it, right? That was COVID. Um, and then with what I call it now is like with this, all of a sudden with this thing where we're announcing a half a billion, well, not half a billion, $500 billion investment with Stargate, and everyone is like, oh man, the U.S. is back, baby, and we're on an AI and crypto and Web3 and all these innovative things that are coming in. All of a sudden, if I am using the same COVID strategy, right, then I call this Covaid, right? So COVAID, right? Where it's like, okay, let's do that. Let's release this model. Let's freak out the markets, right? Let's get the markets to panic, which is exactly what happened, right? $500 billion worth of market value collapsed just over the course of yesterday, right? That happened. So if you think about it from like a geopolitical competitive game theory, art of war perspective, this was a genius move to be able to do. And what did you do as a result of it, right? The market is freaking out. But what the market is not doing is having more and more conversations like this, like what you and I are having, and being able to go in and say, is this really that bad? The answer is, of course not. But the market doesn't care about that. The market's going to panic. And what is it that this is doing? This is causing people to slow down once again, giving the competition more and more time to be able to maneuver and to figure things out as the market's going to start to settle back in. So this definitely dampers the acceleration that we've been experiencing. And I think this is something very, very important that people should be talking about, but not enough people are talking about.
Yeah, I didn't I didn't plan to get into that, but I did consider that maybe the budget numbers are fudged and that they spent a tremendous amount of money developing a really cool innovation, and then they were just like, here, let's undercut all these companies who are raising, they're investing at crazy numbers, and we can just sort of throw a wrench in the works. But again, I had no I had no data to back that up. That's just a thought that I'd had.
Yeah, look, I mean, and the other thing also is if something sounds it's what's that saying? If something sounds too good to be true, it is, right? So you're telling me like all of a sudden, let's just apply logic. And dude, if there's we understand how innovation works, we understand how technology works, we understand how application of technology within innovative companies and whatnot, right? Like how these ideas come. No one finds it, no one finds it questionable that all of a sudden you're able to build out this foundational model. And we're not talking like by a factor of like two or three. I mean, this is orders of magnitude greater, right? How do you go from 96%, right? The cost what OpenAI had, and you're able to do it for 6% of the cost. That's unbelievable. And that too coming out of a place where which is not necessarily known for innovation, but you know what it is known for is for copying pasting, right? I mean, look, this will probably piss off a lot of people, what I'm about to say, but the reality is, what's the Chinese what are Chinese products known for? Bad quality and copying American ideas, right? Copying those and just coming up with a cheaper version of it. But the reality is that that cheaper version isn't going to last you very long. And that is the danger of DeepSeek, right? So like I was having a conversation with Sarva about this also, where we're like, oh, let's try to let's start incorporating DeepSeek into what it is that we're doing, and we should start testing it out. And I'm all about testing it out. Absolutely. Look, we're building an LLM agnostic orchestration layer, right? So we pull in from multiple LLMs, but I get very, very antsy, right? If I'm using an LLM that or any kind of a product in which we're not as privy into the code. I get it, it's open source, but open source doesn't mean that you have access to every single component within the code itself, right? So unless we do a deep audit of that, we don't know what it is that we're doing. I mean, I'm hearing all kinds of crazy things. First of all, this LLM is learning, right? That's what they do. These models. That also means that it's going to be able to capture things that keystrokes, for example, right? And this is actually a part of their terms and services that's there. And so you have to question this. This could also be, and again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, um, if you talk about like uh, game theory and like global competition amongst two nations, dude, this could be what better way to a freak out the market, not only slow it down, but this is a great positioning for a Trojan horse, where it's like, okay, let's get this into the hands of people. It's not going to cost you anything. Forget OpenAI, forget these
Yep.
products that you're doing. Here, take it, guys. And most people are going to take it and say, okay, let me start playing with it. And again, there you go. Trojan horse is in.
Yep.
Now you're actually
Massive
starting to
data
incorporate
mining
this.
subversion
Yes.
exercise. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's totally. I don't even know if it's just possible. It's probably, it's likely probable. I mean, it's to some degree, right? That once you start using it, that they're definitely, by the way, every company does it, but for sure that they'll be doing it as well.
There's a
So,
difference in there's a difference in companies doing it
oh, for
versus
sure. Yeah.
nation states doing it, right? And that's my big concern here is all of a sudden, like, dude,
Yeah.
first
And
of all,
the
almost
intention
every
matters, right?
company, no, sorry,
Like companies
just
just want me to buy more of their stuff.
yes.
The nation states can have more nefarious intentions, obviously.
Yeah, and look, I mean, almost every company in China, there is some kind of nation state that's behind it, right? Some emphasis on that, and it all goes back to the nation state. I mean, this is why that is the big difference between communism and capitalism, right? And what is the CCP? It has the word communism in its very name. It's front and center, right? The Chinese Communist Party. And there is a lot to be said about that. And I don't think what actually, quite frankly, what I'm surprised is that up until now, like people were concerned about TikTok and, what they're doing. This to me is far more dangerous than TikTok. And I'm
Way
just
more.
surprised
It's
that
not
people
even
aren't
close.
talking
This
about
is
this.
way more. I thought of that immediately. I was like, they're chasing the wrong. I mean, they didn't know that this horse was in the race, but this is far more dangerous. People are going to be dumping like company information. Like people throw information into these LLMs the same way you do with Gmail, right? We send a financial statement to each other, whatever. That's sensitive information. We just have to kind of trust that Google, you know, won't distribute it out. This ecosystem is very, very dangerous for stuff like that. If you just want to dump in proprietary information that then gets, who knows what they would do with it. Like you mentioned earlier, they're not known for protecting intellectual property. So
Yeah, man. And that's like to me, that is the larger concern. And I'm just surprised that like up until now, the news media outlets, like everyone is just talking about the market, market, market. They're actually treating this as if it's company versus company. It's not company versus company. That's not how I'm seeing it.
that's right.
The way that I'm seeing it is that this is actually a nation state against a nation state under the guise of company versus company. And are we that stupid to not realize what we're seeing? To me, that has been I would say, the last 24 hours. That to me has been sort of a moment of awakening where I'm starting to really question, like, are we really, we keep talking about like how smart we actually are, but like this is like basic shit. Are we not seeing it? And it's happening right in front of us. And we're not talking about that, right? There's a larger emphasis on, oh, ban TikTok and TikTok should be owned by, dude, no one gives a shit. TikTok, look, and I'm not saying TikTok is not important. Yes, that was a problem, and yes, we should have addressed it, but comparing the issue of TikTok versus this to me makes TikTok look like a drop in the bucket, right? Because this is direct infiltration into not just your companies but individuals as well.
I made this. This is a terrible analogy, but it's the best thing I could think of in the last 2 seconds. This would be like if you were driving by and you saw me fixing a pothole near a bridge, but the bridge was collapsing. Like do you know what I mean? Like it's not use.
Yeah,
This is not a good
that's a
use of our
great
time. Like you need to
analogy.
invest in AI. Like the AI race is what matters, and the fact that they deployed this and it's completely free to anybody in the U.S. is it's crazy. It's crazy that we're not. Maybe we are addressing it in the background, but it needs to be addressed.
Look, I mean, I see this as again, the word that I like. In general, this is a played out word, but in this particular instance, dude, this word actually fits perfectly, which is this is a Trojan horse attack, right? This is where that word Trojan horse actually applies, right? It's like you've infiltrated within, and this is one of those things where it's not like it's um something that's trying to get in, but rather people are proactively welcoming it and saying, "Oh yeah, I want to do it." Why? Because it's like, okay, well, this is going to cost me this much, but this is going to. You don't even. No one has done an audit of the code. No one has actually taken a look at it. We ourselves haven't done it, right? That's why even for us right now, like when we were looking at going into this, the first thing that I said, well, look, let's first try to see, are there backdoor attacks? But the reality also is, bro, even like with backdoor attacks, do you think that's something we can figure out over the course of a day or two in
Well,
code that,
the open source version, it doesn't have to match their proprietary infrastructure for the app. Most people are using the app, so we could clone the repository today, run a bunch of algos, or hire a forensics team, and we could find nothing. We could find nothing nefarious. But that doesn't mean when you send your request to DeepSeek's app that they're not taking that information elsewhere and doing whatever they want with it. I mean, they're almost certainly are doing that. So it's two different things. The open source model, if you download the model yourself with the weights and you rebuild it somewhere, you're good at this. You can be fairly confident that what you're using is safe, assuming you're competent and you can figure out that there's no backdoor. But the idea that the app, what everybody's doing is they're just going to the browser.
yes,
They're throwing their information in it and asking it a question. That action, that's a terrible idea.
dude, that's actually a
For
very
Americans, obviously.
that's actually a very good point that you brought up, because I was too busy nerding out on like the deeper stuff, which is okay, even with the open source code, we haven't done the audits for it. We have to look
Yep.
at it, right? So we need to focus on that. But the point that you're making is, I mean, let's not even go that deep at the most simplest level, which is, by the way, you're where the vast majority of the people are just going to take it at the app layer itself, right? And that is where you're right. That's where you have no idea, right? It's even it like it increases the concern that I was having on the on the open source side by orders of magnitude.
Yep.
And the reality is that's what the majority of the people are going to end up consuming. Yeah, man. I mean, it's I didn't realize our conversation would end up going down this direction, but this is sort of,
Yeah.
it's this is a like, to me, this is sort of a at least if not a red alert, certainly a yellow alert for people to be able to say, guys, like, wake the fuck up. This is like, it's happening. It's happening. And instead of, and to me, it's like all of these things coming together, right? Like everyone right now, the talk of the town is, okay, what's going to happen to the markets? Is Nvidia dead? Are they going to have it? People always talk doom and gloom, right, on these things, and we can go into that conversation as well. And the answer is no, of course not, right? And again, just the way that we started off with the conversation, which is that this thing wouldn't be around if it weren't for those foundational models, right? So it's one thing to build on top of, which is very easy to do, right? Versus to say that, oh, we've been able to do this because of, and most people don't have the ability to be able to decipher between the two. People are
Yep.
people are simple, right? We're simple creatures. But to me, it's not that we're simple creatures, but these analysts, like, why are more and more people not talking about these kinds of things and saying, guys, it's not, the sky is not falling, which could, by the way, which could be another huge distraction, moving us away from what's actually happening, which is a nation state attack. And that,
Yep.
by the way, this was one of the biggest fears of AI, is like, nation states being able to, like, the warfare that we're going to be able to have, right? Like data warfare. This is beyond data warfare. This is AI warfare. And this could be this, if I were to write sort of a script on how to do it, this would be the way to do it. And I think we're witnessing it as we speak right now. And most people aren't realizing it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that they can do, and they can sort of do it behind like a veil, like on the surface level to like a retail consumer. It just looks like a Chinese company built a way cooler model. That is kind of the story in the market. So it gives them a little bit of plausible deniability. They can just sort of be like, yeah, no, did you see this cool innovation we did? Well, it's a safer way to subvert another country versus, if you attack somebody, that's it. It's on. You attack somebody, they have free reign. No country is going to complain if they go after you. But you do something like this, it's like, oh, cool. They're just doing cool stuff over there.
Voluntary
Yeah,
attack.
and it's like you can't. Yeah, kind of like you can't reply. You can't respond aggressively. Obviously, they didn't actually cross that line, but from like I don't know, like the way it, it's serious. It's a serious move. So we'll see what
Yep.
happens.
Well, most people, if they thought that, and people don't realize what it is, this is where privacy comes into play, right? Like people voluntarily give this information up, and everyone is up in arms about American companies. Oh, Google has access to your data, and Google, they're evil, and Sam Altman and OpenAI, they have access to your data, and they're evil. And but here's the other thing. At least they're bounded by this concept of privacy that's protected by the Constitution within the jurisdiction that you're living in, called the United States of America. On the other side, what you're doing is no one is talking about the reality of this other company who you're voluntarily giving your information to that doesn't believe in anything like that. Actually, the opposite of it. It's all about Big Brother, and they now have access to your data, which you're voluntarily giving it up to. That's a fucking scary proposition.
Yeah, and for all the, I'm not defending like profit motive as like the best possible incentive structure, but that by itself is much safer. Like OpenAI has my data. They have a bunch of it. Their goal is to make as much money for their shareholders as possible, and they don't want to go out of business. So, pros $200 a month, whatever is happening, right? I have to pay for Plus, I pay for these subscriptions. That's different than a company who's like, hey, here's this thing that's free. We're like, cool. Are you guys going to try to get me to buy something? I'm like, no, not at all. It's just free. That's not true. Nothing's free. They want something. Data mining, whatever they're doing, it's not cool. It's not going to be a cool thing for us if we just have America dumping their data into this app. That can't possibly go well. There's an incentive there that's hidden. We don't know what it is. It's not the subversion's step one, but there's definitely a step two. They weren't just like tank the market for a month. Like that's nothing. That, like, in terms of like, global, like that's nothing. That's just a blip. But over time, there's clearly something here that we need to, be worried about.
Yeah, man. And again, it's like, to me, what's blowing my mind is that, like, at the highest levels of our government, we're not talking about these things. I would have assumed that at least Elon Musk or Trump or his administration would be talking about, like we keep talking about, there's like this fascination with China, right? and when this is
Yeah.
actually happening, it's like, oh, Nvidia, what's going to happen with the markets? What's going to happen? Like, dude, like, everybody, like, wake the fuck up, take a look at what's actually happening. And like I said, look, man, kudos to the Chinese, right? Because we have to respect what it is that they're. This is genius. This is like genius level approach. If I were to want to do an attack on a nation without making it actually seem like an attack, right? And look, I mean, you can actually. In their defense, you could actually call it that too, because they understand our system, they understand the psyche of how we operate. They know exactly. That's the thing with capitalism, right? It's like it's all about, they knew exactly where the focus was going to go on. So let's use that as a distraction. And meanwhile, let's work our way in and ensure that what our motives are, they're being, they're being captured.
Yep, for sure.
Well, cool, dude. I gotta go take a piss.
Yeah, dude, I have another call really soon. Or
But
15 minutes.
This was good. And
Yeah,
I think
this was
I'm
great.
glad we
Let me know
started
how,
recording our conversation too, because I think this way, at least this way, we can put this thing up and people can start.
dude. As you were talking, I was like, I don't have a ton of time, but like we could do a pretty good, like if we actually outlined ahead of time what we wanted to talk about, we could do a pretty good podcast. Like about whatever these emerging issues are. Like that was just, we were just riffing. If we had like an
But
actual,
those riffs are the best, bro. Those are it.
no,
Like,
for sure. But I mean, if we had like an agenda, like, hey, we're going to talk about DeepSeek or
yes,
whatever, versus just
yeah.
like we're rambling about whatever, we stumble on something cool that people might care about.
Well, who knows, dude? Maybe this could be our first episode of this of our
Yeah.
podcast. But this was good. This was good.
All right. Cool.
All right,
later,
dude.
dude. Keep me posted if you guys.
I will.
Whatever.
I'll follow up with Jimbo and see where things are, and then let's regroup again. Cool.
Yep.
All right. Good shit. Later.
Later, dude.